Hello and welcome to Chillers and Thrillers Extra, paranormal stories just for my YouTube subscribers. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. This video has a rainstorm ambiance and no additional sound effects to help you doze off or relax, so turn down the lights, get comfortable, and listen in. The Hand, submitted by user Laura. I like spooky things, but I wouldn't consider myself a big believer of the supernatural. In fact, if this hadn't happened to me, I would easily write all ghost stories off to be just that, stories. But it did, and for 30 years it has lingered in the back of my mind. Was that real? When I was 4, we lived in a house in San Jose, settled in a relatively new suburb in the 80s. I was a tow-headed little girl, looking like a twin of the girl from the movie Poltergeist. But the weirdest experience was that I was the only one that could see this thing. The first time I saw it, I was sitting in our living room, playing with my toys on our brown shag carpet. Something whizzed by my head, and when I looked up, I saw a hand floating above 4 feet above where I was sitting. No body, no face, just a hand. White and gnarled, with bright red fingernails, just hanging there, palm facing me like it saw me. And we both just sat there, I guess, looking at each other. When my mother walked in, it flew behind her, hovered a bit, and then was gone. I didn't tell her what I saw at the time, but that wasn't the last time it hung around. In fact, it was far from it. The hand became a regular part of my life in that house for a few months. I was only 4, so I only had glimpses of these moments, but it always came with a deep sense of dread when it arrived. When I was trying to do arts and crafts, it would hover over the table before knocking things over. Then it would fly away. It would open all the cupboards and drop plates to the ground. It would throw things into the wall. And when I would tell my parents that it was very clearly the hand, I was across the room and they knew it, they would laugh and say it wasn't possible. And it always seemed to like hiding in the coat closet when it was finished wreaking havoc. As an adult, I've asked them if they ever saw me doing these things, and they say no, but that I would always blame the hand for the weird, often violent things that befell our house. The thing is, I would actually say the hand is here before these things happened, yet they can never account for my actually causing anything. And often, the things that happened were impossible for a 4-year-old girl to inflict. Believe me, I've spent a lot of time trying to prove it was just me being a weirdo, but nothing ever sticks. The moment I realized the hand was not just an annoying menace trying to get me in trouble was just prior to our moving out. My older sister was baking cookies in the kitchen while I was in the living room watching TV. We could see each other through the cutout between rooms, and when I got that gut feeling I'd always get when the hand showed up, I looked over at her. Sure enough, there it was, hovering between us, in that little space between. I said, "Nikki, the hand is here. It's right by you." Frustrated, she grabbed the sheet of unbaked cookies, looked me square in the eye, and said, "Lauren, I'm so tired of this hand thing. It's not real." And as she was saying those last words, I watched the hand push her into the oven behind her. She burned the whole side of her arm. It was one of the most terrifying things I've ever seen, and for being so young, it was pretty intense how clear the memory has stayed with me. The following week, we were clearing the house for our move. The hand was hovering behind me, following me everywhere. On our way out, I looked behind me, knowing it would hide in the coat closet when I got too close. I was terrified it was going to follow us and that it would be my fault. That final day, as I walked towards it, it zoomed into the closet and I slammed it shut. That was the last time I was in that house. I haven't seen it since. Recently, I looked up the house on Zillow. Out of all the houses in the neighborhood, this house has had the most resales. I wonder if it was just me and my strange little imaginary enemy. But even at 24, I honestly can't say it was just my imagination. My dad crawled from under my bed. Submitted by user suspicious_orange_71. I was around 6 when this happened. My parents had tucked me in for bed. I live in the rural countryside, so nighttime is very quiet, no sounds of cars. It's usually very peaceful. I was lying on my back when suddenly I heard the sound of long nails scratching the wood under my bed. The reason this incident sticks out to me is because I can still remember the feeling of my heart dropping to my stomach and feeling paralyzed with fear. I was about to call for my parents when my dad crawled out from under the bed, stood up in the dark, looking at me. He said, "You forgot to say your prayers," then walked out of my room. I was understandably shocked. I did not leave my bed afterwards and must have fallen asleep at some point. My dad would normally tell me to say my prayers before bed, so this seemed like something he would say. But I have no idea what would possess him to hide under my bed. My dad obviously denies ever doing this. I brought it up numerous times over the years, and he's never admitted to it. I never really considered until recently that he definitely doesn't have nails long enough to make that deep, scratching sound I heard. Face on the glass, submitted by user Yale631. When I was a kid, in the summers, my family would visit my grandfather's cabin, located in a remote area in the woods of northern New England. The nearest neighbor at the time was about 5 miles down the road. The cabin was just yards from a lake, ideal for fishing and boating, but I suppose you could say that the area had a rugged beauty. But I always felt uneasy there. My brother and I shared a bedroom that had a bunk bed in it, parallel to a window with no curtains. We drew straws over who would sleep on the bunk bed, on the top bunk. If you lay on your side on the top bunk facing the window, you could see right out into the dark woods around the cabin, which creeped us both out. You always had this sense that someone was watching you. Whenever either of us slept on the top bunk, we slept with our backs to the window and the covers pulled tightly over our heads. Unfortunately, temperature at night dropped quite low, so we could keep the window shut and locked, even in August. We never talked about it with our parents. They were both no-nonsense, pragmatic types who would have no patience with this kind of irrational fear. Our last night there, I woke up with a start. It was pitch black in the room. I had drawn the short straw again, so I was lying in the top bunk. I thought I heard a sound just outside the window, like the crack of a branch. My heart began to pound, and a paralyzing fear gripped me. I didn't dare turn around to look to identify the source of the sound, and just lay there trembling. My brother in the bunk below was silent, and I assumed he was sound asleep. In any event, I would not have dared to call him in case I was overheard. I must have finally nodded off again, because next thing I know, I could hear birds singing outside and saw that it was growing light. In the bunk below, my brother whispered, "Did you hear that?" It turns out that he had also heard something, and just like me, lay trembling with the blankets over his head, not daring to move or make a sound. As the sky grew lighter outside, we both climbed out of bed and approached the window cautiously. My brother gasped and pointed to the top of the window. Visible on the glass was what appeared to be a partial print of a human face, with palm prints on either side, as if someone had leaned at the window, peering in through the glass at us. I felt nauseated when I realized that the face and palm print were 8 feet above the ground, and there was no ladder or other object for anyone to stand on. Thank you for listening. For more spooky stories and true encounters with the strange and unexplained, remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay up to date to new releases.